Have you ever wondered why the cost of, say, a loaf of bread never really changes? Say a loaf of wheat bread. But the price of wheat will change on a daily basis. We see a lot more price variability in a commodity such as wheat that the farmers are facing than we do for a loaf of bread that the producers are producing. Well, what we have is price variability of agricultural goods is often being pushed back on the farmers, meaning the price variability of raw commodities are seen by the farmers, but that price variability is not transferred over to the consumers. And the reason for that is due to the inelastic supply curve that farmers and ranchers face. And what I mean by that is, as farmers face an inelastic supply curve, as we have large changes in price, it has relatively small effect on the amount that we provide, on the quantity supplied. So, if I were to pick two random points on this graph right here, and we're facing this blue supply curve that we see on this graph, if we pick two random points and we see that we have price up here and then price down here, we have this large change in price, this large price variability. But overall, we see a very relatively small change in the quantity that we're supplying. So we have large changes in prices really does not affect the amount that we produce all that much. And that can, in a lot of ways, be contributed to the biological lag that agricultural producers face. Because we must make our production decisions months or even years in advance, then that supply is kind of already locked in place. So as the price changes drastically, or maybe even by small amounts, it really does not affect the amount that we produce, because we're going to produce the same amount anyways, because that's already been locked into place months or years in advance. So these farmers, as farmers, we face a very inelastic supply curve, meaning that large changes in prices have relatively small effects on the amount that we produce. But on the consumer side, it's a heck of a lot different. On the consumer side, they face a very elastic demand curve. So they face a very elastic demand curve, which means large or small changes in prices can have large changes in quantity. So if we were to pick two random points again, we see that we have a relatively small change in price, but a relatively large change in quantity. This small change in price means a large change in quantity. So what happens is on the consumer side, whenever producers are selling these goods, if they change their price or increase their price by even a small amount, they're going to lose a lot of the quantity that they're selling. But if they decrease their product price by even a small amount, they're going to gain a lot in the amount that they sell. But they don't change their prices all that often because they face this demand curve, this elastic demand curve, meaning small changes in prices have large changes in quantity. So therefore, their prices must stay relatively constant all the time. And this is due mainly to the fact that there are a lot of substitutes. In the agricultural or in the food world, there's a lot of substitutes. Just to name a few, if you don't want to eat pork tonight, you can eat beef, chicken, or some kind of seafood. If you don't want to eat green beans, or if green bean prices increase slightly, you're going to stop eating green beans and go and start eating maybe corn or carrots or broccoli or something of that nature. Let's say, for example, the milk prices increase slightly. Then consumers that were used to buying regular dairy milk, they might be going out there and starting to find alternative products such as soy milk or almond milk or something of that nature. So because of the substitutes, the consumers face a very elastic demand curve, meaning they can't change their prices all that much. But because of the biological lag, it causes us to have a very inelastic supply curve on the farm level, meaning large changes in prices or large price variability has relatively small effect on the supply we produce, meaning that all of the price variability or majority of the price variability generally is pushed back on the farmers.